So a few weeks ago, I watched Mad Max Fury Road, and man, do I have some opinions on this movie. I'm just going to preface this review by saying I did give it a 3.5 out of 10 just so you know where I stand on this movie before I start analyzing it. Anyway, Mad Max Fury Road is obviously the quote-unquote biggest movie of 2015, which I suppose is a fair title considering how overwhelmingly popular it was. I personally did not enjoy the film, and it shocked me that I could not find a single poor review of this movie online, except for one. And even there, the critic that wrote it got torn apart by all the Mad Max fanatics, which I suppose is a fair response if something you enjoy or love is talked about poorly. But some of the people I found praising this movie are so blindsided in their love that they do not see it has flaws just like every other movie does. One of the biggest claims I've heard is that the special effects are groundbreaking and set a new standard for Hollywood movies. And honestly, I can't agree with this. The movie's effects were visually interesting, sure, but they were not at all unlike things I've seen in previous action movies. Car chases and crashes have been perfected and overdone so much by now in action movies. This movie did not stand out to me really at all as something beautifully crafted by George Miller. Another big claim made for this film is that the effects are all practical effects and everything you see is as it is. This is complete bullshit that people spew out to back up the film's credibility as a work of artistic beauty. While much of the film's special effects are practical, an enormous amount of it also was shot on green screen or enhanced significantly visually, as are most special effects. And if you don't believe me, you can go find lots of BTS shots and lots of footage that shows that they do a lot in sound stages and on green screens. So, in that regard, it is really not all that different from the rest of action movies released today. When it boils down to it, this movie is nothing more than just a 2-hour chase scene. The most suspenseful moment in the movie is just, oh no, looks like they might catch up. The writing in this movie is so poor, I didn't actually think I was seeing what I was seeing. The dialogue was just so cringy at best and really made me uncomfortable during the movie. All the moments that tried to be dramatic or meaningful ended up garnering an eye roll or a laugh from me, like this piece of fine acting.
Max. My name is Max.
I honestly don't understand what George Miller was thinking with this scene. This woman is dying in your arms, and you figure that's a good time to tell her what your name is. What? And honestly, I've looked around, and I've tried to see other people talking about this point, and all I've seen is that people say, it's an action movie, it doesn't need to have a story. And you know what, if that was true, I would have enjoyed this movie. But fortunately, my brain was on while I was watching this movie, so I could see through the plot holes and the nice looking visuals to see that this movie has no substance. People talk about how it has meaning and, commentary and allegory, and I don't see it. I honestly don't understand what content you can pick up from this movie. It looks nice. It's shot well. I don't have a problem with the way it's shot. It looks pretty cool. They did a good job. But honestly, I don't understand what they're talking about when they talk about how meaningful this movie is and the messages it sends. And people say, it's a chase scene. What more do you need? It's cool that you shot a 2-hour chase scene, but does it constitute as a fine work of art as a film? And all this is not to say that the film didn't have its strengths. I gave it a 3.5 out of 10 for a reason. I thought that it was a particularly interesting concept, but a lot of it was pretty overly done apocalyptic content. The apocalypse is in the desert. There's no water. But no, the movie did have its strengths, and I do appreciate them. For example, the movie is shot pretty well. It looks good, and there are a couple moments that made me chuckle, like the guy who's playing the guitar on the truck, and there was a couple times in an action scene where I was pleasantly surprised by an effect that happened. So the movie did have its strengths. I thought it was directed pretty well for an action movie, but that doesn't equate to directed pretty well for a movie. Those are two very separate things, because it was directed pretty well for what it was. It wasn't anything that I would say was a fine feat of directing, and in terms of the cinematography, it's all shot well, and I appreciate the effort that went into it. There are a lot of shots that I thought looked pretty good, and I was pleasantly surprised with, and I can give kudos for that. That's part of the reason I gave it a 3.5 out of 10. But when you shoot something well that has no content, it's the same reason why I gave Furious 7 a 3 agree. If it's shot well, which it looked nice, and the CGI was good, but the story is, if you took out what constitutes as plot devices, it would be the same movie. And it's the same thing here. If you take out the plot devices, if you want to call them that, it's the exact same movie. It's just these guys driving, and if you take out the little bits of conflict that disappear within 5 minutes, then you have the exact same movie. There's just a little bit less of what you would call a story arc. But even that is not a very good title for what the actual story arc is. It's more of stuff that happens. It doesn't have any effect on the story. There's a scene where Furiosa is stopping at a checkpoint for the water, and she runs and something happens, I think. I don't understand why that was a big deal. And then they just chase her again. It's literally just one thing that happens so they can get back to being chased. That's all it is. Most of the plot devices are just, look, it stopped for a little bit, and then we're going to go right back to where we were before, going through the desert with people behind us. And can we talk about the chrome paint for a second, where Nuck sprays the chrome paint on his teeth as a drug? I have no problem with directors leaving things up to the imagination of their audiences. A lot of my favorite movies do this, and if it does it tastefully, and if it leaves enough information for you to fill in the blanks, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you just say, look at this drug they do, it's not helpful to the audience. I'm just thinking about how dumb it is that they're spray painting their teeth, and that makes them do-gooder. Honestly, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I haven't seen the older movies, so I don't know. Feel free to correct me. If you watch this review and you say, you know what, that's something in the older movie that so-and-so or blah, blah. If I'm making a mistake, please feel free to correct me. I don't have a problem with that. But when they just throw this in the movie because, it looks cool, it just doesn't make sense to me. If you want people to interpret your film as a work of art, you might want to complete the circle that you're drawing. Another thing that bugged me in this movie was the frame rate switch. At certain points in the movie, it would just switch the frame rate. It would speed it up very quickly and then back down. It would feel like animation, and it would just feel fake. And honestly, if you like this movie, I don't have a problem with it. I get that it's cool, and I think it's a interesting idea, but please stop saying that it's groundbreaking, and please stop saying it's important to the culture of Hollywood. It isn't, okay? It just isn't. Because action movies are going to stay action movies. There's going to be action, but you're not helping the genre. If you want to help the genre, it would be best if you put in a story that actually made the viewer connect with the people we're looking at. Because with Max, I'm just like, he's going to do that thing. And then 3 minutes later, when he did that thing, I said, oh, look, he did that thing I guessed he was going to do. Same thing with every other character. When you don't have any character development, there's no surprises to the viewer. There's nothing that ties them into the story and makes them want to watch it again or think of it highly as a movie. If you just kind of make a movie that looks cool and has an interesting concept, but you don't flesh it out in any way, this is what this movie is. That's all it is. And I don't get why this is such a groundbreaking movie to so many people. I get that it looks cool, and I get that it's people call it a badass movie because it's got these cars, and there's fire, and there's explosions, but that doesn't make it a good movie. And honestly, I can't believe how highly rated this movie is, and that there's 0 poor ratings from critics. I went on to Metacritic, and there's 0 negative reviews. There's 1 mixed review, and like I said, he got torn apart. Anyway, if you like this movie, that's fine, and I hope you got something out of this review. If you don't like it, it's your decision. If you don't like it, don't like it. If you like it, keep on liking it. But I hope that this opened your eyes. If you keep calling it a masterpiece of a film and of Hollywood and of cinema, I hope this opened your eyes that it's not, and I think you should stop calling it that.